What's up, guys? It's Paul, and I'm going to be bringing you, God, it's got to be the first tutorial in a year. I guess to kick the new year off, although it's obviously nowhere near the new year, but you get my meaning. I'm going to be showing you guys how to create this little effect. Let's do a RAM preview. You guys don't need to see a RAM preview. So basically, there's two parts to it. There's this cool little smoke transition, and then you can see how the wiggling, the movement gets more and more intense as you go by. So I'm going to show you how to do both of those. So let's make a new composition. And I'm going to do 960 by 540 just because it'll make my computer's RAM much more happy. Let's make a new text. Type whatever you want. I don't care. And yeah, that's all fine. Whatever font you want, doesn't matter. So that's pretty simple, obviously. So first thing we're going to do is the smoke effect. And this is not a super advanced smoke effect like what you would do with Trapcode Form. This is something that's really simple, really easy to use. I use it a lot of times when I've got text and I want to do something more with it than just like fade it out, but I don't need it to be the centerpiece of my composition. So it's really simple. I like it a lot. And I think the technique is pretty versatile. You can adjust it a lot of ways to get some unique looks. So the first thing you're going to do is get CC Vector Blur. And CC Vector Blur, just before we go any further, I kind of want to draw your attention to CC Vector Blur. It's actually a really cool plugin, and I really think people don't know how to use it that well. And, or I'm sure people do know how to use it, but it seems underused to me because I don't think people really realize how cool it is. So, just for example, there's a lot more that you can do with it than what I'm just going to show you in this tutorial. You can, as you can see, obviously it's a blur, but then you can also get some cool effects on text. Here we go. Get sort of a blurry 3D look. This would look a lot better if I wasn't in 960p. But, you can do tons of stuff with it. Play with the map softness. You can really do a lot of cool stuff. So don't be afraid to explore this plugin. I think it's pretty cool, and I think it's underused. So that's my plug for CC Vector Blur. But let's move on. So I want constant length. That's fine. And I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to turn the map softness up a lot to like 100. And then you're going to probably put this maybe around negative 200. So as we've created this cool look right there. And then the next thing we're going to add on top of it is turbulent displace. And I want twist smoother. And you can turn the size down, maybe to like, 15, and turn the amount way up. 15 is a little too small, so maybe 20. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. And then we're going to apply a fast blur. Maybe, I don't know, how much? Let's try 17. And that's just going to kind of smooth everything out. So you can see we've kind of created this little bit of a smoke cloud. Obviously, now we need to animate this so that it actually becomes a transition. That's really easy. Just put a keyframe somewhere in the composition for the amount on all these. So blurriness, amount, and then go back maybe 10 frames or so. Set these all to 0. Okay, and then we're going to hit U, and I'm going to go, U brings up your active keyframes, by the way, I think. Then you're going to hit Shift P, Shift S, or I'm sorry, Shift T. We don't need P. So Shift S, Shift T, add a keyframe for both of them. I'm actually going to move this keyframe a little bit ahead of where the effects start, and then go a little bit behind where the effects start. I'm going to add the keyframe for scale to 150, and then I'm going to set the opacity to 0. So what happens is as we go further, we get this expanding smoke look, and it fades out like it's real smoke. And you could even, let's grab the position, Shift P, and let's add a keyframe right here, and go out to here, and let's just move it up a little bit, because as we all know, smoke rises, right? So we get kind of that sort of a look. Yeah, that looks kind of cool. Maybe a little bit less up. We don't need quite that much movement. And I'm going to, get the right keyframe. I'm going to select these. I'm going to make all of these easy ease. So just go to them and keyframe assistant, easy ease. So it's just going to make everything look a little smoother. And smooth is always good. Right? Yeah. All right. So that was the first part of our composition, and that was really easy. And just for the sake of having more space, I'm going to move these out so that the first keyframe is at 2 minutes, 10 seconds. So basically halfway through our composition. So now let's get to the second part. Let's duplicate the text, or the test, and we're going to name the bottom layer heat and the top layer smoke. And on the heat layer, you can delete all the effects. You don't need them. So, and now we're going to hit U again, and we're going to grab, for the T, or for the heat, we're going to grab our opacity. You can delete these two keyframes. And you're going to go on the smoke. You're going to add a keyframe right where the effects start. Go back 1. Turn the opacity down to 0. For the heat layer, you're going to add a keyframe at the same place where the opacity for smoke was 0. You're going to add a keyframe for 100. Go forward 1 keyframe, turn down to 0. So now they just, basically right here, they switch. So now let's go layer styles, gradient overlay, and you're going to go into the gradient, and the first thing you're going to do is add a keyframe right at the start. You're going to edit the gradient, put whatever you want. Doesn't really matter at all. There's lots of ways to get the color change in the text. This is just an easy way that I've found. Really, really subtle gradient. And then I'm going to go ahead to right at the end where the opacity is at 100%. You're going to edit the gradient again. And, just sort of create a little smoky, fiery effect, right? So let's just get some nice oranges. Orange is always good. Pretty simple. Doesn't need to be perfect, at least for me, because I don't really care about being perfect. And neither should you. I'm just kidding. You always need to be perfect when you're making effects. Art is about perfection. That's it. Of course. Didn't you guys know that? That's too much green. Fuck green. Green's ugly. Grab this. Make that maybe. Ooh, that's what I want. Yes. Get that dark orange. All right, so sort of looks like fire. However you want to do this, obviously, is fine. And because we added the keyframes, you can see that we kind of turn into this fire. Okay? So now, what you're going to do is you're going to create a new null object, and you're going to add, type in right there, slider control, and then you're going to add 2 slider controls. Hit E on the null object, name the first one frequency, name the second one amplitude. This is completely essential. You cannot skip this step. I'm just kidding. You're going to pull up the position for the heat. You're going to remove the keyframes. We don't need them. And then alt-click on the position, and you're going to type wiggle. And wiggle, what wiggle does is it just wiggles the layer, wiggles whatever property you have it applied to. I guess this is the first time I've used an expression in this video, so just as a brief explanation. Expressions are really complicated, and I don't know very much about them, but I do know the basics, and they are essentially bits of code that you can apply to anything with a stopwatch. You can add an expression to it, and they make the layer behave in various ways. They make that value behave in various ways. So the value here is position, and what we're going to do is we're going to wiggle it. And wiggle is a command that tells After Effects, I'm going to move this value, now we're going to set the parameters. So wiggle says to After Effects, you're going to move the position. The first one is frequency. I'm going to use 10. And the frequency being the amount of times it moves per second. And then the second one is amplitude. And so if I write 10, it's going to move 10 times per second, I think 10 pixels per second, or 10 pixels each time it moves, because I use 10 for both values. So there you go. And we can see how it's wiggling. And that's obviously, there's that. That's very simple. But what we want is we want to be able to control this. So bring up the slider controls, and then go into the wiggle, highlight the first number, and then pig whip the slider. And so what we just did is we said to the wiggle expression, the first number is going to come from the slider. So the frequency is going to come from the numbers that wiggle is going to take for frequency is going to come from our frequency slider. And then we're going to do the same thing with amplitude. And there we are. And so as you can see, because our sliders are set to 0, we have no wiggle, which is exactly what we want. So I should briefly mention I pretty much just spoon-fed you guys that explanation straight from a tutorial I found on ae.tutsplus.com. I'll link it. It's much more in-depth than what I just told you, and, got to give credit where credit is due. So, yeah, that'll be in the description. So let's play with the sliders. I'm going to hit U on the heat layer just so we can figure out where we are. And I'm going to go to the end where it turns, where the last opacity keyframe is. And I'm going to set the frequency to 30 and the amplitude to 4. I guess I'm going to set it to 40. Now, 30 is what I want. I'm going to add keyframes there. Go back to the start. Oops. Put them both to 0. And so, as you can see, our movement gets more and more intense as time goes on. Let me just solo this, actually. I don't want to see the smoke yet. And so you can see we get this really kind of gradually building wiggle as our text is turning to fire. Let's turn this up. Let's put this to 6. And maybe right here, let's put this to, I guess I did want 40. How ironic. So that's looking pretty good. Okay. And then just to sell it a little bit more, we're going to turn on motion blur. Motion blur just blurs things that move. It always helps to sell effects like that because motion blur happens in real life with your eyes. Yeah, there's an effect in your brain called motion blur that it adds to make things look cool. That's such bullshit. I can't even believe I just said it. Yeah, let's just pretend it didn't happen. Okay. So I think that should pretty much wrap up the tutorial, actually, because you can see we've got both effects. I'll do a RAM preview so you guys can see it in its full glory. And let's see. There we go. Thank God my computer's so fast. There we go. So you've got the got the text building up, and then you've got it dissolving into smoke. I think that's pretty cool. I like it. And one other thing that you can do, let's go back into the smoke layer, hit U. For the turbulent displace, you can add, and the evolution will because you can sort of see, it's hard to tell, but the actual turbulence, the turbulence field that's affecting the layer is not moving it's stationary. It's hard to tell because our composite, or we've added the movement via the position value. But another thing you can do is alt-click on the evolution. We're going to use another expression. And the evolution is just, it moves the actual turbulence field. And you're going to type time times, let's go with 30. Oops. And then just click outside of it. And what time times 30 does is it tells the evolution value that its value should be the current time in your comp. So like 2 minutes, 9 seconds times whatever this is, so times 30. So, yeah, it's weird because we've got 0 plus 69 here, and our frame number is 69. So that doesn't really make any sense to me, because it's supposed to be time times 30, so you would think this would be, like, if we're at 30 frames right now, you would think this would be 900 on this value, but that's just how it works. I'm sure there's someone much more intelligent than me who can explain it, but yeah, I can't. So let's do our last little RAM preview. And you can see we've got our nice effect now, or you will be able to see eventually. I wish I was more entertaining so I could entertain you guys while RAM previews are happening. There we go. Pretty cool. I like it. There's things you can do to sell this a little better. I could probably, that maybe even move all these frames, move these forward a little bit so that when it actually does switch out the, let's hit you. We can just move, I don't want to move the opacity, but because that's switching the layers on and off. But this way, that looks a lot better, actually. I'll show you guys again. God, I hope I don't have to redo this again. First time I went through this, my mic was catching all these weird sounds, and I sounded like shit, and it was just embarrassing. I didn't want you guys to have to deal with that. So, yeah, that looks better. That really looks kind of like it exploded almost. So that's cool. I like it. I dig it. Could add maybe even a little glow to our bottom layer, or there's no effect called Glock. Surprisingly, I know. So, Sapphire glow. It's not the default glow. Actually, I should use the default glow. Not everybody has the Sapphire plugins. Get the glow. Go to the last keyframe where we want the glow to be highest. I'm going to set the glow threshold to 0. Turn the glow radius up. Keyframe the glow intensity. Put the glow intensity at 0. Do one last RAM preview. Oh, I guess the glow intensity did not actually. Why did that happen? That's so strange. I do not understand why they did that. Maybe turn the radius down, I guess. That's really weird. Usually when you keyframe the glow intensity, it turns down the intensity like it's supposed to. But maybe I need to pre-comp. Who knows? So yeah, so now we're getting somewhere. That looks pretty cool. You can see it starts to heat up and then bam. And one last thing while I'm here. Let's add a little fast blur to this. And I'm actually going to keyframe it at 0 right there. And we're going to add just a tad, maybe 2-3 pixels of blur just to make it look a little bit more like it's actually catching on fire. So one last RAM preview. Oh, God, I hope I haven't taken too long. Yeah, so now we've really sold it. And that's always what you have to do. You can't just stop once you get it set up. You got to actually sell the effect too. So I think that's about it. 19 minutes. God, my last one was 16. Moving on. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully learned something. And I legit this time, I'm going to be making tutorials again. So please subscribe. And please suggest some tutorials for me. I have no idea what people are looking for in tutorials. And I'm happy to take suggestions. and I'm going to try to get a tutorial up at least once a week. It's actually pretty fun for me to do. So, yeah, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Bye.